That's inside the ice house.
I've never seen a picture inside the house.
So that Kalamazoo Ice and Fuel Company that took this picture, they only cut ice off Fife Lake in 1 year. That was in 1909, which happened to be the golden year of postcards. But this isn't my program, I'm just showing off the bench. And there's Oscar Deibert's Octagon House, Codd's Fire Tower, the LeVar House, the Hodge House, our old schoolhouse, or the museum.
Where'd that building sit, Craig?
What one?
The ice house?
The ice house, right, right off that bend, right below Mitch and Janice's house.
The low area? Yep. The swamp, just down
I gotta jump out. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Everybody says that.
Okay, we'll get started. Welcome. I'm glad to see all of you here. I'm Joyce Frywald with the Historical Society. I hope that some of you might have seen this article. We actually hit the paper with the fixing of our fire barn. We're very happy about that. It cost you and us about $18,000 to just do the outside because of the lead-based paint that had to be done correctly. But I think we all agree it looks pretty good now. If you haven't gotten a membership form, newsletter, there are some right here. And of course, I never go any place without my donation jar. So you're welcome to donate if you feel so. And Craig doesn't need any introduction. He certainly is our historian for Fife Lake. And so I'm going to let him take over and start the program.
Okay.
Craig?
Thanks, Joyce. Amy, can I get some water, please? I know I'm gonna need it.
I'll get some. How much light do you want? Is that too dark?
That's probably good.
Okay, good.
Everybody hear me?
Yeah.
So, welcome to the program. I'll be doing this again this coming Saturday. It's one of those deals that, as I got involved with this, it got growing and growing. It got huge. This program should actually be like a 4-day thing. I've had to cut so much out of it that it's not even crazy. So hopefully it's good to go here. Thanks, Joyce. So of course, back in the day, logging would be a big industry, and one of the big trees that was around the area. And this is what it looked like. It's probably looked like the Manistee River Basin there. These are off the Broward, some Broward pictures that I had that was taken in like the 1920s. But you can see everything's been cut over. So at that point, it was really good for cut over and burnt, basically. You know, so it was like really advantageous for the growth of blueberries. Blueberries was a big industry back then.
What they do with lumber, just let it fall?
What's that?
Just let the lumber fall?
They cut the logs, but then,
Yeah.
it just gets burnt over,
Yeah.
scorched. And of course, back in the day, with that being said, there's a lot of small underbrush coming up for quite some time. So, and I put this in here, it's not from the time period, it's later on, obviously, but I do like it with the snowshoe hares, because that was a big thing, and you don't see snowshoe hares anymore around here. Of course, Manistee River, and a lot of my stuff is going to be dealt with the Manistee River today, obviously. Another one at the Manistee. Of course, times were tough back then. There's got us some produce. Farming, dangerous stuff, always dangerous work. There's always people getting maimed, killed, so on and so forth with everything going on, whether it be logging or farming related or whatever. One of the things that's a marsh, it's a hay scow that was in the river. So what they would do, and that was off Brower's trip in 1922 when he went down the river with Louis Walter, who was Doc Walter back in the day. So he went there on a fishing trip. They got in at Springfield and they went up to gosh, I can't think of it, right past Sharon. They got in the river and floated down the river, and the guys were camping and fishing all the way down. But anyways, that was the thing back in the days. They would cut marsh hay off the river flats, off the river bottoms. So that's what that is from 1922. Steam tractor. And I believe that was over by Kingsley. This came from a set of glass plate negatives over by Kingsley, and that's why there's such great detail there. And some of these other ones that were black and white previous were also off glass negatives. And there's one here in Fife Lake with the bandstand right there, right the center of the park. Because right there is the park where the farmers market, whatever, would set up. The banks over there. Because I like this one. Just
Is that Janice?
what's that?
Is that Janice?
Yeah, it's Janice. I just like the the look and that feel of that, and that's also off one of those negatives locally. Of course, road building back in the day, there was nothing much going on. They had to do corduroy roads. They had to cut down the logs, and they would put them across like wet areas and stuff and build up. Hence the name corduroy roads. Out on County Line Road, out by the 4 county corners. Sometimes when that road gets beat down, you can still see the inlays of the old corduroys, the old logs through there. It's crazy. And of course, everything was they did everything in excess back then, whether that be hunting, fishing, whatever, or basically, sadly, wrecking the environment. Well, we still do that today, and we should know better, but I'm not. I do things not right too. So, and this is George Bays. He was a professional photographer out of Manton, and that's one of his glass negatives.
Oh my God.
Another one of George Bays' photos. He would have had, his photo studio would have been in the parking lot where the Hall Funeral Home is there on 42 42 west out of Manton. And then sometimes you get to see the hotties at the lake. I know at one time, on the other side of this lake, there was some pretty girls that were over there. My dad, I gotta keep this up. My dad was always teasing Joanne and Mary. Every time you'd see them, he's like, where are them pretty girls that used to be on the other side of the lake? Where are them pretty girls at?
It didn't matter where we were.
Yeah, so that's the running gag. So I had to throw that in just for, but this is also Bay's negative. Those are Manton ladies there.
Big time.
Stern Salt and Lumber Company, Justice Stern had the biggest commercial logging industry in Michigan at one time, or manufactured stuff where not basically logging per se, but the stuff that was coming off the logs. And he was big time. Matter of fact, he even had a coal mine in Kentucky. In the town that he got that coal mine in, he named it Stearns. So Stearns, Kentucky. But he's buried over in Ludington. But the Stearns Salt and Lumber Company, they did a lot of work out of Kalkaska County. And that one I'm sure is out of Kalkaska County because I know this glass negative where that came from. That came out of Kalkaska County.
How was
stuff.
that brought in? Is that a rail or is that
Yeah, it's on rail.
on rail?
Steam jammer. And of course, with the logging industry, but sometimes they were in simple shacks, sometimes they were bigger areas, or sometimes they were in actual railroad cars. Like here, see, they got the railroad cars. And this is also Stearns Camp. There's some of the big timber that was around the area. And there's inside of a dining room, lumber camp. So, let's go to Walton Junction. Michigan place names, Walter Romig. A.F. Phillips built the first house and later ran the first hotel post office opened February 14th, 1873 with James L. Gibbs, first postmaster. I didn't research it enough to get the closure on that Walton post office, but there's looking north, or excuse me, south on the rails at Walton Junction with the MD Crane store here and the post office right here, which have been in it. This was the Neggs Hotel, and it was later the Exchange Hotel, or just previous, I can't remember, than the depot out there in the background. Of course, there's Crane store there. Now, mind you, they're off the glass negative, so they're like, perfect pictures. They're not off stinking regular pictures that you scan. These are off actual photographic glass plates. And there's a saloon at Walton. One of them. And this is from the Grand Traverse Herald. So I'm using a lot of my stuff tonight. You're going to see from the Grand Traverse Herald, the Fife Lake Monitor, and the Kalkaska Leader papers that I've gotten stuff. So it just shows some of the, whoops, sorry. Bugger. You know, the times and stuff. And it's funny when, obviously when Walton first started, that they would have to back the train, or they come forward to Fife Lake, but the rail stopped at Fife Lake, so then they had to back all the way up to Walton Junction. And that, you know, that's what the train was doing. So for however so long, and I got that on some other information, but this says the Huckleberry business is lively. So like I said, there were probably not less than 200 Indians, children engaged in gathering them. Now it's funny, we're gonna find out later on here that not only the natives back in the day were like the migrant workers of today. You know, that they're not migrants because they were native, but they were the ones that were doing the jobs that nobody else was doing. So there's a new store starting in Walton with the post office. Then talked about a supply store being added at Walton. And that's a big number. Feet pine this winter. Promising Village of Walton. Great numbers of men are passing through this village to the Lumberwoods. And already a dozen camps are already in active operation. 7 more will probably start soon. So that's something to think about. So if you have a dozen camps, and you figure, well, okay, there's 20 or 30 men there, you start multiplying that up, well, okay, that's just the river, the logging camps. We're not talking about the river, the guys on the river, the guys that are running the logs down the river too. So that's why Walton got its would get the notoriety that it had, because there was a lot of bad boys going through there. So yeah, he went grayling fishing in the Manistee River. They had moderate success in September 2nd of 1875. How stinking disturbing is that when we had grayling around here? Michigan Gazetteer from 1875, so the Gazetteer would list businesses. It was a business directory per se, so it would list the businesses for each community. So right here in 75 are the businesses that had already popped up in the 2 or 3 years existence of Walton Junction. This is an 1881 map, and I have another one we have an old one in the museum, and it does list some of the owners of the lots in it. But this one is interesting. Well, you got Hannah Lay. Perry Hannah was really big at pushing to get that railroad, you know, the Traverse City line going to Traverse City. Being a businessman, he knew that railroad was heading north. Well, he had to have a line going to Traverse City too, and he made sure of that with its different stockholders and stuff like that. So they shot the Traverse City line, but he also had obviously a store in Walton Junction. Now the Cedar Creek was still there. This later would be Walton Pond. So we'll find out. So there's another disturbing thing. 3 of them caught 150 pounds of grayling out of the Manistee.
What's grayling fish?
The grayling, the fish. And it's something to be noted. I read where the grayling that they're trying to reintroduce here in Michigan are not the true native Michigan grayling no longer. These were fish out west, I believe, or something that they're planning in. Just like the elk that they brought in here are not the true Michigan elk that were in here before they were decimated. You know, they were brought in from out west too. So a lot of the stuff that we have nowadays, you know, it's not the same. Well, they're the same thing, but not the same. So this is really slick. So you've heard me, and it's like beating a dead horse. You heard me all the time say, well, William H. Fife, he came to Fife Lake with the survey team with D.C. Leach, DeWitt Clinton Leach. So in here he's talking about, you know, he's bought 160 acres from Hannah Lay and Company to do the swamp and stuff like that, to do the cranberry marsh. He's purchased 168 acres. Mr. Leach has made a start and predict that others will follow suit on the venture. And there he is, D.C. Leach. So on April 12, 1883, Mr. Leach has informed us that ditching will begin on his cranberry marsh at Walton on Monday next.
Hey Craig, was the cranberry marsh here first before it was at South Boardman?
There's no cranberry marsh in South Boardman.
There was cranberries there. Grandma talked about that.
There might be so, but there was not a...
But not a huge mark, not like here.
Right. So there's one of the cranberry pickers in the museum that they used at Walton. And that is in our museum. So they're talking about the ditching operation. So you can see the lines through here, because that's Walton Pond, and that's a dam, and this is where the marsh would have been, through here. Now see, in 1881, that was still a stream coming through here, but now they started damming it up in 83. His ditching progress, more pleased with the character of the swamp, with so in 93 realized net profit of $500 from 2 acres or more of his vines, high quality. Whoops, I got them out of order. I thought I did. So he's buying vines from out east for his cranberry marsh. And in 83, there you see the 83. In 10 years, that place was starting to hop. It was getting it in gear. But unfortunately, it's a town that's built on logging. So it's not going to last. We know that. And I'm sure they did. In 1884, the water has been let off the cranberry marsh. So in 84, they had that dam in, and they've let the water off it to fill up that cranberry marsh. That's one of my cards that I have from 84 for oyster supper at Walton, Michigan with Odd Fellows. And A.E. Waite has completed the frame for a cottage for Honorable D.C. Leach, and we'll go to that place to put it up. Mr. Leach will occupy the cottage during the summer while he is looking after the cranberry marsh. So D.C. Leach was living in Walton Junction. And I believe he was just below the depot area is where his place was. I don't know that for a fact, but I know he was close to that, the railroad. And this is one thing that I had last year, the year before, I had said, well, I think that's the Manistee River Bridge being built on 130, on the train bridge, and I don't think it was. I think, because my negatives are not from 88, but let's say that's a typo with the Muskegon River, but that's that railroad bridge that they were going to remove a couple years ago that they're talking about moving taking out next year. So if that's the case, that bugger is what, 140 some years old? And they're still hauling material over it. I'm friends with the head honcho up at Beacon Recycling up to Traverse City, scrap metal joint, because they were across the road from where I work. And he said, yeah, he said because of that bridge that they're limited with the amount of tonnage they can ship out of that yard, because the terrain still comes into Beacon Recycling because the rail yard's right there, or the rail line's right there beside that on Cass Road, where they put the material into the railroad cars, but they can't go over there with any excessive amount of weight because of that old bridge.
Where's the Muskegon River near Walton Junction?
It's a typo, it's supposed to be Manistee.
Okay.
Muskegon River's long way. So, William H. Fife, this next one right here, I was as happy as a little girl when I read that. August 20th, 1896, William H. Fife returned from his visit with Honorable D.C. Leach at Walton Saturday. D.C. Leach and Walton, or D.C. Leach and William H. Fife kept up their friendship beforehand, before coming to Fife Lake, or before coming here to the lake, and then afterwards in their travels of life. Matter of fact, they were together and they were breeding, I can't remember what breed of cattle they were doing in selling them, that William H. Fife and D.C. Leach were in like a cattle business together too. So it's just kind of neat to think that them two brothers were in the same cottage together in Walton Junction. Boy, oh boy. The stories that would have been there, you know.
Craig, how long, 1898, how long was that before they discovered the lake or came upon it?
Would they come here in 68, 69, 70? What was it, 69, 70? Because it was a few years before the town actually, I can't remember. Too much stuff in my mind right now. Sorry.
72.
Well, yeah, when there, but I'm talking the survey team in location,
I'm just glad they didn't call it Leech Lake.
right? Because they were wanting to. They were wanting to. So there's the Phillips Hotel that burnt in Walton in 1898. And this is pretty slick. 99 years old, returned to Walton, where he can work until the cranberry season is over.
Oh my gosh.
He makes most of his living making baskets and bows and arrows. Yes, please. I'd like to buy some.
Why?
So, here's something to think about. July 31st, 1898. There was a bad frost that year in July. Because it was the Sunday before this that killer frost came through. So you start looking through the old papers and stuff. They talk about the potatoes, how the potato was still decent, even from the frost that had occurred several months earlier in July. You know, when they started digging potatoes. But yeah, so that torched him. But basically, in 1898 and in September of 99, I don't have it on here, there was 2 hard frosts. So here's one. 30 Indians passed through the city yesterday on their way from Shabbytown to the Cranberry Marsh at D.C. Leach, where they will be employed in picking the berries. They will camp there during the berry season. September 11th, 1900. The Michigan Tradesman had a nice little article on D.C. Leach, on his cranberry business and stuff, and in there he talks about it on this page, on another page, but he talked about everything that it's entailed and what you have to do and how you had to build up the area, because on the west side of the pond at Walton you can still see the areas that have been dug out where they had taken the sand to build up the beds for the cranberry marsh beforehand. So if you're on the west side of that cranberry marsh out in the woods there's still some pits that is from where they excavated the dirt to take into that area for the sand for the cranberries. There's some natives at Walton for berry picking. harvesting berries up Walton. More of them. And I can't tell you what angle that, obviously that's looking to the east with the houses. Walton Junction. Another one of Walton. Road near Walton. Well, that narrows it down. And it's across the railroad tracks, that narrows it down. That's really not helpful. And there's on the culverts, the sluice, you know, for the water. My Uncle Bernie had told me when he was just a little boy that him and his dad, my grandpa, had came and took out one of those out of the dam to take it back to the farm. Something about he wanted the metal, but Uncle Bernie said he'd never been so cold in his life. But I think there was like a handful of them that were down through there. But Uncle Bernie also said when he had worked for the state of Michigan with my cousin Doug Bridson, that they had a bunch of equipment lined up on the county road there at Walton Junction, because what they were going to do is they were going to remove this dam, and they were going to put one further down to dam that up too, so it would enlarge that whole Walton Pond area. But the state of Michigan, you know, obviously it didn't follow through with it. Yes, they had machinery there, they had the equipment there to do it, but they did not follow through with it for some odd reason. But like he said, they had their stuff parked there ready to go into it. And that would have been what? Probably 50s, 60s? I like this one just for, yeah, right there. You gotta take the baby doll to go out picking berries. And there's the cranberry warehouse at Walton. Don't ask me where that was at, I don't know. And there's just an article for the best sauce and puddings out of the Walton Marsh. Ron Stocker was saying out on Facebook that there's still some of them berries out there now to get out there, but I mean, that'd be sketch going out there to try and get them. And this is the one I was talking about. I think my negatives came out of this one right here, because there was a heck of a crash there on the railroad bridge south of Walton, and some of the Rick, sorry, too much stuff. One of the trucks is still in or a couple of the trucks are still in the water, right?
As far as I know,
Yeah. Supposedly some of the cars are it's still in the water there in that vicinity, but they had a big mash up right there. So I think this is it.
Derailed.
Yeah, right there. And I'm sure with as much damage as has happened that they probably had to rework part of that. That's the only thing I can assume. Once again, these are George Bay's glass plate negatives out of Manton. Give credit where credit is due. Another one. See, you can see the carnage. But that is the bridge. But obviously, and they're working it, so obviously something catastrophic. So they just talked about Walton fancy cranberries, 9 cents a quart. And this is sketch as all get out. This is so sketch. April 22nd, 1905, D.C. Leach's summer home of Walton was destroyed. And they said, probably from sparks from a passing train. But here's the ace kicker. The family who had been occupying it during the winter had moved out only a few hours before it caught fire. Yeah, that was intentional. I'm not saying that, but yeah. Talking about things that make you go, So, eventually, D.C. Leach, I think he passed in 1905, 1906, but he had sold his cranberry business to his son-in-law. So he was here to inspect his cranberry marsh like a month or two after that hot cottage had burnt down. So 21, 22, there's what's left of Walton Junction. Going away. But Grandma said that Leif had a restaurant in Walton too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Leif Williams had a restaurant in Manton, Walton Junction, and here in Fife Lake. And Grandma talked about eating at his restaurant in Walton. Grandma was born in what, 26?
26, that was the first restaurant she ever ate at.
Yeah, was Leif Williams, who was a relative of hers on her mother's side. So obviously they were still in business about in the time of the Depression, but I can't imagine there'd be much going on there. So I just showed you some pictures of Walton. I wish I knew more about Walton. Once again, glass plate negatives. Both of these are glass negatives. That's off a glass negative. Union Hotel. Another one, glass negative. These are the same negatives that would produce postcards back in the day. And there's that Walton Inn, it was Neg's Hotel, Exchange Hotel, it's the one that was right by the depot. And there's, this is the MD Crane store, because you could, with the post office and stuff. Union Hotel. Section crew, I suspect. MD Crane merchandise, that little girl that was on the steps was about right in here, so there's the post office sign. It's fairly common back in the days, and especially here in Fife Lake, that there was not a building onto its own that was just the post office. The post office was usually shared inside of a store because, you know, communities were so stinking small, they didn't need a whole lot. Because the post office here in Fife Lake jumped around a lot. There's another one of it. This one's a rare picture indeed. I got two of these and they're a little bit different, same group of people, but that guy right there, to have him in Walton Junction, I never knew that he took a picture of Walton Junction, but I got two pictures, so that there's hope that maybe he did some more Walton Junction when he was there, because he was a professional photographer. Ed Beebe. There's inside a store in Walton, big bunch of bananas. One of the saloons in Walton. Michigan Gazetteer, sorry I got that out of order, 1909. Not much going on. So the Lookout Bar. Yeah, I'd throw in some more of the common stuff. Another picture of the Lookout Bar. What do you think of that? That's what I'm talking about. You know how hard it was for me to get that stuff? Do you realize how much, it's like, everybody's like, well, don't you have this, don't you have that? It's like, no, I don't have this, I don't have that, but I'd like to have this, I'd like to have that. But, you gotta do a lot of digging. You gotta do a lot of digging. I've done a lot of digging to get stuff. You just, sometimes I guess if you're sitting on your ducks, you might get lucky, but you really gotta dig for stuff. So, Cat's Paw Bar, Manton. Some of you probably would remember that. Lookout. Then I just put a picture of the cat's paw in there. Is her. And then there's Bridson's Market, Marianne. And I don't know what the heck my problem was. You know, back in the day, I was still with the museum. I was doing a lot of museum stuff. And why in the heck didn't I take pictures? Why didn't I take pictures of that store? Inside, outside, backside, side? Why didn't I take pictures of the other store? Where they had the bottled gas and stuff.
Oh, D&L Trading Post?
Yeah, the trading post. Why didn't I take pictures of that? Because all that stuff was wiped out. Why didn't I do that? But, so, I can't remember all the owners on this one. It was Double D's had it before Buzz did. Then it was
Goodwill's.
Goodwill's.
Yeah,
And who?
Walton's.
yeah.
okay.
Littleton's in there.
There's inside the store. I got a hold of Buzz. I said, it's okay if I can use some pictures. He's like, absolutely. Like, okay. Thanks, cuz. They had like the best sub sandwiches. So Pugsley Correctional Facility, of course, is gone. Opened as a camp in '56. Secured level 1 prison in January 2001. Closed September 2016. I will say this. Like everybody was working for the state back in the days. My dad did for a stint. My cousin Myron was, cousin Doug, and my Uncle Bernie, so on and so forth. They would roll in, roll out. So Myron was with a work crew out of Camp Pugsley. And so they had a tanker truck, and it had Agent Orange in it. So the convicts had these backpacks on with a hose coming to a spud, and so it had a trigger. So what, you'd come up to a tree, you'd hit the tree to debark it, and you squeeze the trigger to spritz the Agent Orange into the tree to kill it. And he's like, well, so you get there in the morning. He's like, you're loading up the guys with the backpacks. You're sloshing them around, they come back up, you're sloshing more. He said it only takes a couple strikes on that tree and a couple spritzes before it's spraying up. But one of the things that they like to do at the end of the day, yeah, you know it, boys will be boys, water gun fights, except with Agent Orange. They spray each other and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't see the problem there.
Well, another thing about that was when I was younger, they would bring some of the inmates in, apparently, that they could trust. They would take them down to the boat launch and let them swim. Well, Grandma had a fit, you know, you girls stay off, don't you dare go in that water. But we were so curious, you know? So we'd sit up there by the bar and watch them.
Jeez.
But yeah, that time.
That's not creepy or nothing. I guess I know where I get it
We
from.
were given
It's
a
natural.
little prison buses and, remember? Yeah, in your beach.
Yes.
You watch them.
Yes.
So there's delivery, sale, and feed stable. Now we look at it and weep because that does no longer exist. That's off one of the Broward negatives that was lost. And that's the Oddfellow Hall right there. Laundromat's about right here, and there's that crooked little tree. Now it's a big crooked tree right there by the Quilter's Clinic. I like that one. That's another Broward negative. That one does exist. Yeah. Then this one is taken,
Okay.
yeah, but right there's a cemetery in the background.
Oh, my.
And there's not too many people in there at that time. So a lot of my stuff, some of my maps, thankfully Phoebe Cotton had went around back in the late 60s, early 70s, and did a historical atlas of Kalkaska County. She did a few books, actually. This one here, I'll be referencing some of her memory maps, because she was going around, because some of the old timers were still alive back then, obviously. Because right now I'm like way too late. I'm like 50, 60, 70 years too late. So Springfield Township, that's the corners where the cemetery is. Fife Lake is right here. And we're going to talk a little bit about a Springfield store right there. So this was the history of the cemeteries of Breed and Clark cemeteries from 76. And that's out of the Kalkaska County, or the Springfield Township cemetery book, put out by the Kalkaska Genealogy Society. And so what now, the Breed Cemetery is what, the Ingersoll Cemetery? So January 1900, Church of Christ is complete, and that would be that building right there that was tore down. That one was moved to Fife Lake, the Clark School, and tore down. That's a horse shed for the Clark School. That's the cemetery, United Brethren Church. That Tommy Gibson Road. That's how it looked years ago. I took that picture. I think back in the 90s. So that Manistee Northeastern Railroad, you know, obviously went through Walton Junction. I didn't really touch on that, but Manistee Northeastern went through Walton Junction. It went through here at Springfield. This area here was known as Springfield. And there was a store right there. And Ernie Morgan had that store. And he was a Spanish-American war veteran. And I had some, every time I can't find something, I can always hear my dad's voice. My dad was always one to tell me, you need to take better care of your, yeah. You know what I'm talking about. He's like, you're gonna, well, you know what? He was right, I guess. I got too much stuff, too much ass stuff, and I couldn't find my stinking article about the store where they were taking stuff to the store, but maybe that's later. But anyways, that's Costa Road right here. And like I said, that store is out here. And right there is that Manistee and Northeastern Railroad grade cutting across Costa Road right there. And the hallway event center's right up here.
So Craig, where would Rose Ash's house be in relation to that?
Right here.
Oh, right there? Oh, okay.
Back here.
Okay, so it's.
You can still see that grade if you look really well.
Yeah.
I think Frank and Charlotte have that property,
Yes.
but they got like a little cable up or something like that, you know, to keep off. But just to the west of that, over here, right in the edge of that red pine, is that railroad grade. I knew old lady out over by Grant. Her parents, she was with her parents and her siblings when they were tearing up that Manistee and Northeastern Railroad grade, because her parents were cooks, were cooking for the crew as they were tearing up the iron. So she said they stopped at Springfield, and she walked into Fife Lake here with her brothers to get new shoes at one of the stores here in Fife Lake. Because obviously Ernie Morgan at the Springfield store did not carry shoes in her size. Anyways, so they had to walk into Fife Lake, to walk back to the train as it was, and the cars and stuff as they were dismantling the track. And I don't know if this was at Springfield or not. It's really thought-provoking, because this is also where the other one was a Brower photo. This is also a Brower photo from his, I think he took like 50 pictures of his trip on the Manistee River, and they went up to see, it's on the flat part of Riverview, which is on the Manistee Northeastern Railroad grade. And there, right there is Dr. Walters. That was our doc in Fife Lake, one of the doctors. And of course, Willis Brower. And I'm sorry, once again, I got too much, because I can't find my Hausman Siding stuff, but this is out at Hausman Siding. But I had some more stuff to say on here, but anyways, they had a potato warehouse out there. And I found some stuff where, like in the early 1900s, that they were like getting like a tram set up per se to move logs out of the area to come over here to Hausman Siding to get loaded up on the railroad railroad cars. But I don't know when that started. I don't know much about that.
Where was Hausman Siding at?
Right there on the corner of Shipping and 131. But there's a little, what's that building there now? There's a building there now. I can't think of it.
What is it?
What's that? Oh.
It used to be a little dollar store thing.
Yeah, it was a dollar store, and I think then they had fish in there, then they had saltwater fish, and
No, I don't know.
so there's one of these memory maps from Phoebe Cotton's stuff, and it's a memory map by Ray Deibert. And so the Deibert school still stands, but the Doherty store was right across the road. The Gleaner Hall is back here. I do have a picture of the Hackett sawmill. I did not put it in, though. I'm sorry. I also have a picture of the Wellman mill I didn't put in there, and I also have a picture of the Doherty mill that I didn't put in. Shame on me.
Next.
So Doherty warehouse, Deibert potato house, cucumber plant. I was telling my friend Lisa and Randy here before we started, I said, bad part about it, I was out visiting old Bob Ingersoll way back when, and I was kind of rudimentary how I did stuff because, well, there was really no good way of doing anything back in the 90s. So I would go over there with I had a really good Canon Rebel camera, you know, that with a copy stand and filters and stuff, and I would take pictures of the postcards or photos or whatever. Well, I'd wrote down the information because I know I had some pictures of some of these people that are in here, doggone it, but I never, next thing you know, Robert had died. Then I tried getting with Cheryl to get some information, and next thing you know, the house burnt down, so I got some pictures now that I copied from Robert Ingersoll that I know that came from Deibert of some of these old families and stuff, so it's like, son of a puppy, you're never gonna get that now. But you just don't know when you first start doing things. When you first start doing this sort of work, I've come to realize that one item that you're looking at right now might not be the only stinking item out there, or there might be only a few of them. And what you're looking at is a rare thing, and you're never, ever going to see that again in your lifetime. And that's the case on a few different things that I've been going around doing research for. You know, the stuff that sits in the back of your mind just haunts you. So this is pretty good. George Green purchased a light sawing mill outfit of Hagedorn's. So Hagedorn had the big mill out on Gilfillan's Point there in Southtown where Snyder's, thank you. So he's moving to cut up on Ingersoll Lake in Garfield Township where he'll erect this and run by Christmas with capacity of 10,000 feet daily. And of course, so here's Calcascalator from 21. The pickle stations at Sigma and Deibert are closed. They refuse to accept any more cucumbers from farmers and will not allow them to unload the pickles on the property. Well, looks like they're going to South Boardman or Fife Lake then, because they had stuff there. So, but certainly out there, you know, Ingersolls would have been, you know, one of the foremost families out there, and of course you would have had some of these other families that were out there, the Breeds and Deibert and stuff like that, you know, one way or another either had moved out of the area or they just for one thing or another, but you know, that out there, I know Dan Ingersoll, right? Is what homesteaded out there? Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. He was a Civil War veteran.
So that pickle factory in Fife Lake at kitty corner from where the post office is at, when I was a kid.
So there's a horse race at the Gleaner Picnic at Breeds Lake. So right there, they're calling it Breeds Lake, and it's not Deibert, it's Breeds Lake. Another one of the horse race. And I know where that's at. I know where both of them pictures are. It's on private property, I can't go on there. Fact of the matter, I don't know if I'm can get out of the county either, so there's that. Aha. So there's wrestling. And right there is there's that Gleaner building right there. There was a few more photos, I don't have them, of that Gleaner picnic. So right up here, right there, you can barely see it. That's a store at Deibert, right there. That chimney. That's a Gleaner. Yeah, is that Sharon Road? It's Sharon, right?
Yes.
Yeah. It runs, yeah. And there's that store. And right there's the lake in the background. What Breeds Lake. Yeah, now what's it called? Is it still Breeds? Huh?
What is Breeds Lake called now?
Yeah.
It's still Breeds Lake on the map.
Is it still Breeds Lake? Okay. Because I know names change. And there it is, Breeds Lake. On this particular day, Bob Ingersoll said his dad was pitching whatever team, you know, obviously they had a Deibert team, and I don't know who they were playing, probably maybe one of the Springfield teams or a Fife Lake team or something, or Boardman, who knows. But you can see that Manistee and Northeastern Railroad grade coming through here. But obviously the cucumber house, the pickle house, the potato house, none of that is visible because it's all out of here. Another one of the Gleaner Hall.
Craig, was the Gleaners an organization like, say, the Grange or something of that nature?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And so, I had talked last year about the Reichman girls that had drowned, Flossie and Fanny Reichman, and Bob Ingersoll had said that the one was his teacher. She was 19 years old, and over summer break she had drowned. Well, anyways, so there's the little girl. That's what, Fanny, right? Yeah, Fanny, and there's Flossie. Flossie was a teacher, and she went in to grab her sister because they drowned off Puffer Road, and there's a little lake out there, and that's where they drowned. I just tossed that in. So his memory map was Smithville. Yeah, the Frank Smith's gas station here. You had Chris Pitts' gas station. You see, I got it marked up. That's the thing when you start going around and visiting with people. Sometimes I probably shouldn't have wrote my book, but you know, they like, well, I don't know if it's there. It's there. It's like, well, I think it's probably right there. So there's a railroad bridge that came across there, and it says the railroad was moved in 1924. State Road 66 was built here. So there's Smithville. That's 66 with the Manistee River. Well, actually, the canoe livery's right here, and Jack Sloat's house right here. And I had some pictures of Jack Sloat's Manistee River news, but I didn't have time to put it in here, unfortunately. He had published this stuff back in the 1970s, but Lund Road's right up here. And that's off one of the Brower stuff, and that's that one. That's when that railroad bridge was still in, because he took it off the Mitchell Railroad brother. He took it off the Jennings Railroad Bridge, the Cobb and Mitchell Bridge. He took that picture at Smithville, which is that right there, that bridge. He would have took it off that bridge. There's another Mitchell Brothers train that would have worked in Kalkaska County. Chris Pitts, and there's the old railroad bridge right there. He was one time owner of one gas station, Pitts' gas station. There he is again. Because there was one gas station here and the other one on the other side. So the old road, if I go back, 66 was initially through here. Or, excuse me, right here. Right there is where 66 would have ran. Like the gas stations would have been in here, right here. There's Smith's store in Smithville. Another one of it. But that's looking across. Old 66. The bridge is no longer there. And I threw that in there with Tappletown. And Smithville. Then some of the pictures we have of Tappletown being built. 1948. Then this one was right up the road. This restaurant here was the Northern Grill. Joyce Custer had worked there, and she went in there to eat one day, and she actually got hired right then, just to eat. And I think she ended up owning the place actually, but she said that they were really nice to work for. But she said in the fall that was really hopping. But that place was right between, so you got Lund Road here, Ingersoll here, that Northern Grill, right in there, where that restaurant would have sat. Garfield Township, Smithville map showing Lund School and some of the others. Unorganized Springfield with Dempsey, Naples. Naples was a big blueberry area back in the day. So there's, that would have been at Sharon Post Office. And here's a memory map, once again a memory map that Charles Stuck had put together when he was still alive, and Phoebe Cotton went out there. So there's the Sands Railroad. There's Tidd's store, we're gonna come to that here in a bit. A hotel, store, a school, blacksmith shop. So initially Sharon was known as Jam 1. It was the first major log jam on the Manistee River, and that was because of the North Branch of the North Branch meeting right here. So they had a log dump right there where they dump logs in, and it hooks like that. But that North Branch would filter in right here, and that's where everything was really jamming up. So the North Branch is right there coming in, and right there is the Jam 1. It's known as Jam 1. And they wanted to be as Jam 1, but they said, no, you can't have Jam 1, so it had to be Sharon. So that's how it came with Sharon. So this is from 1890, where it talks about Jam 1 Bridge, and Calkins. Gosh, I can't think of his first name right now. Was out there. So the Calkins has been out there for, 1903, postmaster in a hotel. And there's a view looking upstream from that area, off that bridge that I said where the logs would get hung up. And there's downstream of it. And like I said, that the North Branch comes right here, and that's where the logs would pile up. And there's Calkins Camp. And I don't know, I suspect I've been out in that country. Another one of it. Once again, off the original glass negatives. And there's water tower and stuff with the railroad at Sharon. Sharon on the sign. Out there at Sharon. And there's one of the, that's the log slides on the Manistee. (1909), there's some of the guys that were in there. Harry Stocking had the hotel. E.F. Tidd was a grocer. There's some logs that are on Sharon, the Manistee. That's on the Cannon Creek, right there in Sharon. And that's a bar in Sharon. That feller's had a hard go of it. On that, it said that that's Tidd, but I don't know if it is or not. There's Harry Stocking at his hotel at Jam 1. Another view of it. There's nothing out there now. Nothing. And there's a worker that had worked for him. And there's some of the ladies from Sharon. Of course. And that one. I do have her name. What's that? I can't hear so well. Probably good?
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. So, covered up the name, because potentially maybe somebody's in here related to her. So, Fife Lake, December 30th, 1907. Mr. Harry Stockens, Sharon, Michigan. Dear, do you have help? I understand you are keeping hotel. Now have you got all the help you need? I would like to do the cooking. I get $7 per week, but you state that what wages you pay. I have in the business. Have you any girls? I would like to come over, and so if you will answer, I will come over all as satisfactory. I want to work, and of course would entertain on the side. Huh? What? What's that? It was a different day and age and time back then. But if you knew who had the P.O. box at 204 in Fife Lake in 1907, you would know who that is. But like I said, I darkened the line, you know, to protect. Maybe she meant entertained by something else, who knows? Give her the benefit of the doubt. What's that?
She played the piano.
Yeah, maybe she played the piano and danced. There's Fade In the Cannon Creek. I think Alan Reichman was taking pictures, because I got several Alan photos that were like out east of Boardman and stuff like that, and I can't prove it. I've asked the Reichman family and they don't know, but that's the problem. You know, you go so many years out that things are lost and people forget. People die. And I got that from Hiram Angel, because he corrected me out on Facebook, because I thought that I was told that the school was burnt and it wasn't, then it was tore down, and so I put down it was burnt. Well, no, it was tore down. So there was what that school looked like, the old Sharon school. And that's all that's left of it right now. And that's looking towards, where was I? Yeah, one of the, where a store and hotel would have set out in that vicinity. Looking back down the line. So down through here, you gotta use your imagination, because the school's right here. So there was a store and hotel here. There was another store down there. Then down through here, there would have been a whole series of shacks. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It was just, things were different back then, and people worked hard, and there wasn't much going on. So I'm not, you know, things were tough. My grandpa Bridson, you know, he was born in '89 there in Walton Junction, you know, by Walton Junction area of Fife Lake, and he had told my dad that sometimes he would wake up in the mornings and there'd be snow on his blankets and stuff from coming inside the log house. So I mean, things are tough. And that's another Brower photo, number 40 out of the 50 photo set. And thanks to Denny Gill for giving them up for me. Denny is the great-grandson of Willis Brower, who obviously had the store here in Fife Lake, and he was a mortician, he was a photographer, he did music, you know, he was like everything. Willis Brower was it. Robert Ingersoll would tell me when he was still alive, when he would come in from out there by Deibert, you know, Ingersoll Lake, that he said when they first got into town, he's like the first person that he looked up was Willis Brower. Every single time he came to Fife Lake, he would look up Willis Brower. He was so impressed with him because of how he was, you know, and everything that he could do. He was just a wealth of information. But anyways, there's one of the many log jams on the river. So that's what was going on. There's a lot of, you know, then eventually when the timber ran out, they started pulling these logs out of the river. I think Bob Daniels was doing a lot of that, am I correct? I think Bob Daniels was doing stuff out by my cousin Myron's out there in the,
He was.
yeah, was removing a lot of the old dead heads and stuff out of the river. So in '95, Charles Schwab, a brakeman for Sands logging train, was running into Sharon for dinner. He was jerked between the cars and instantly died. And this headstone was made by Riley Swears of Traverse City, and that one's like in the middle of the cemetery. Lisa would know where it's at, or Sexton. But it's kind of a long article, but obviously, you know, that he was well thought of, you know, that, you know, he died over there at Sharon, and they brought him back to Fife Lake to be buried. I think he was only like early 20s, mid 20s. So I threw this in. It's a Brower negative. Obviously, it's on the lake. Once again, I got stuff around. I got too much stuff. Anyways, I can't find the stinking article. I think it was Glidden, who was in the hardware business with Jim Hodge, I think. And, God, I can't believe it. Anyways, they were owned by Sharon, and it was early 1900s, and they found a 2-year-old buck that was caught in one of the log jams, and they grabbed it. Can you fathom that? I can't fathom that. Grabbing a buck? Who does that? Well, anyways, they had it, they captured it, they had it, people had offered him, one person had offered him $25 for that deer, for that live deer. So I don't know if that is indeed that buck that was captured off a log jam over in Sharon or not, or if it was just a fawn that somebody had grabbed, you know. But obviously it's an older deer because it's not a yearling. I mean, you know, or that year's fawn because it has the antlers. Because if it was, they might have a little button buck, you know, a little nuts. So, anyways, it's thought provoking. So I just thrown that out. Whoops, oh, no, I don't. My bad. So, Manistee River at Sharon, and there's that. See, there's that bridge where I was at, and then the mill up here. But there's all the logs that were caught in that area. That's thinking pile of logs. So in 1908, they talk about April 17th that they had caught 350 rainbow trout.
Wow. 2 days?
Yeah. Overabundance. That's what they did back then. No rules, no regulations. Well, there was, because I found where a conservation officer got some people for killing stuff and getting too much stuff. So, but that's pretty slim to none. Shingle Mill, June 4th, 1910, the Shingle Mill at the F. Kidd near Sharon was destroyed by fire last Saturday afternoon. Grand Traverse Herald, December 3rd, 1903. And they said 50 pounds of dynamite was stored in the basement of this store. So 12:30 a.m. a fire was discovered by the night watch of a sawmill close by, who was John Sharp. John Sharp, I later looked him up on Find a Grave. He was 69 years old, and he lived down by he's buried down by Big Rapids now, but his wife had just passed away 6 weeks previous. But yeah, he's up, and like I said, it's hard times. You didn't have Social Security, you didn't have anything else. You worked until you died. And August Lyman, that night, he coincidentally had said after supper, in the logging camp, "Boys, I've been here for the last 14 years, and I suppose I'll leave my bones here." Leroy Dines was carrying out a load of axe handles. He had told his wife to get out to a neighbor's place when he heard the fire going on. When the alarm went off, he said, "Get out of here, it's not going to be safe for you." So he walked 8 rods. So what's a rod, 15 feet? So what's that? 16 feet, sorry. He, holding his intestines before dying at the table of his home. When the explosion occurred, 5 men were removing 27 barrels of kerosene from under a lean-to next to the store. George McClellan was seriously injured. Yeah, obviously they had forgot about the sticks of dynamite down in there. Another Brawler photo, Jam 1. There's the bridge. And then the big cannon, Sharon. And so back in the day, it was pretty, I hope nobody's related to this guy. I should have blocked that up too. Sorry. So, you know, and this was sent out to Los Angeles or San Francisco. And like, and I can't remember when Ed Rugg was sheriff of Kalkaska County. It was early on, obviously, because that's his postcard. But, you know, it's telling what the guy was. So, you know, to try and find a criminal back then was really difficult. I'm sure it's not any better nowadays, but, you know, there's more stuff to be able to find people. But so here's Tid's store. And I got this out of that Phoebe Cotton book, too. That's supposed to be Tid's store in the background there. And there's the remnants of his store right here. And there he is. Ernest Tid. Blueberry Man out of Sharon. So like I said, over at Naples, outside of, to the southeast of Sharon, was a big blueberry place. Matter of fact, store owners and stuff out of Kalkaska would go over there and set up tents and buy berries from people. Robert Ingersoll talked about going and picking berries too, out to Sharon and stuff when he was a boy to, you know, get the money, to make money. The huckleberries were the big thing. So Ernest Tid, so he was murdered the evening of July 24th, 1923. He'd been in business 20 years. So I just kind of perused through the Traverse City Record Eagle, the Kalkaska Leader. There's some stuff in the Fife Lake Reporter from that year too that had a little, and each one of them has a little bit of different flavor to it. You know, I'm sure it's like editorial
License.
There you go. Thanks, Joyce. So Ernest Tid had 20 plus years as businessman, is age 58. Bruce Williams was age 25, worked for Tid for 2 years, and was a World War I veteran. Evening of July 24th, 1923, he had been working with the pigs, so I guess he had been supposedly firing shots in the air and yelling at the pigs and stuff right there and making all sorts of noise. But there'd been an ongoing feud over money. And I guess some people had said that Tid was a hard man, but then you hear of other people saying, well, he was a good man. So who knows, it's somewhere in the middle, but he didn't deserve to die. Bruce lived in the old smoke shack that used to be for the store, pardon me. And the shack that he lived in was 8 by 6. And he stood 6 foot tall. Bruce would say later on that when Tid came out to confront him, that Ernest came out, he said he was going to knock his head off. But then you hear Tid's wife, because their home was right by that store. I showed you the foundation of the store. So that their house was just right there too. And she had said that she had heard, and I think there was a little girl there too that had said, he had heard Ernest say, "Here now, boy," you know, and that's when he got shot 3 times. He lived for 5 minutes. There happened to be a doctor who was staying at Tid's hotel. There were 16 resorters who were staying at the hotel. Now, mind you, the hotel is not the hotel that we might think of. The Tid's hotel was a group of shacks that were left over from the logging days. I mean, and so you had these high-end people coming to Sharon, you know, to fish. And that's what they were coming up. They were coming to fish, to hunt. So that's why there was doctors in there and stuff like that. So there just happened to be a doctor there, but he could not save Ernest. Bruce had hid in the woods watching for, I think, a few hours, they say. And he was afraid of the resorters. He was afraid if the resorters were going to found him, they would kill him. Then he went to the store at Riverview on the Manistee North Eastern Railroad grade at 10 in the morning. The next morning, brought a loaf of bread He was wearing blue shirt and khaki pants. Over 100 men were looking for him with orders to shoot if need be. Now, Sheriff Herschel Deibert out of Kalkaska County was, the sheriff at that time, and he was only sheriff for 1 year. I don't know if this just took too much out of him, but because his young was there for 1 year, and it just happened to be the year that this murder took place. So, like I said, the berry picking was a big thing back then. It was a big, big deal, and I just can't reiterate that enough. So the berry pickers were leaving the fields. They were all afraid. He was eventually picked up near Grayling on Friday. So he had shot Tid at Tuesday. He got picked up at Grayling by the sheriff in Grayling around Friday around 5 p.m. He was walking down the Manistee Northeastern Railroad grade to get to the depot at Grayling to probably make his escape up the UP, they figured. He spent his time taking food from berry pickers while he was out on the lam. Also, they were asking where his rifle was. They never did find his rifle. They never did, as far as I know, find the murder weapon. He used a Winchester automatic rifle. They say it's automatic. It was probably a semi-auto, although at that time you could definitely buy autos. He filed the Manistee and Northeastern Rail Line, blamed drinking and being on dope. Also, Tid reminded him of the military with the way he had treated him. Now, he said he'd been on drugs since he was 16, and that day he had took 3/4 of a quart of moonshine from a berry pickers that day of the murder. So he said he was drunk too because he didn't remember nothing. He was eventually found guilty and was sentenced to 7 years in prison. Now, when he got, and they say in the papers that he was a kind of a dim guy, but who knows? He might have been okay. Just, but he potentially he was probably suffering from PTSD. But they wouldn't know back then. It would have been shell shock. So there's I'm sorry. So that's Riverview. There would have been like that store there where Bruce would have got his loaf of bread the following day. He bought a loaf of bread. But there's Dr. Walters again and Willis Brower on that on the Riverview Railroad Bridge. So, of all the craziness in the world, how things align and you just never know. So up there, over in Sharon, was this Dr. Caroline Bartlett Crane. And I got this from a Kalamazoo website. She's an American, Unitarian minister, suffragist, civic reformer, educator, and journalist. She was known as America's housekeeper for her efforts to improve urban sanitation. So she did a lot of traveling. She had spoken in England and stuff like that, but she happened to be camping on the Manistee River when Ernest was shot. So she did the funeral for Ernest Tid at Garfield, at the Garfield Cemetery, because he's buried at Garfield Cemetery. They're on the corner of Sharon and 66. So so I like this, that her highlights in her career was where she had interviewed with Mark Twain in '85, intrigued on hearing that she claimed to have experience on Mississippi. Twain wanted to prove her as a charlatan, but after Caroline correctly answered a number of questions, he laughed and said, "I give up," and gave her an interview that even seasoned journalists had failed to get. So she was, so in '85, her achievements were recognized by the induction into the Michigan Women's Hall of Fame. But there was like 200 people, over 200 people in attendance at Tid's funeral, although Sharon at that time I think only had like maybe 15 or 20 people. So there's Harry Stocking. Harry, and that's a young picture of Harry Stocking. I talked about him before with the hotel and then him getting that saucy letter from that lady in Fife Lake, So that's him early on. That would have been like 1880s, 1890s. But in Tid's, during Tid's trial, Bruce Williams' trial, he said, well, I would take home Bruce right now, because he believed that Ted had it coming, and he liked Bruce, so he'd bring Bruce back to Sharon with him. But Bruce eventually, after he got out of prison, did move back to Sharon. So we'll finish up here. This is Ernest Tidd. This is always what he was fond of saying. We have a wilderness out here, a wonderful wilderness. All are welcome to it. That's that.
Thank you, Craig, and I would like to remind you that Craig will be doing this presentation again Saturday at 7 o'clock here, so if you have friends that would have liked to come tonight but it didn't work for them, this is another opportunity, Saturday at 7 o'clock right here. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.